2 of the graphing rational functions. What I'm going to be doing on this particular video is doing problem number 8 from your homework problems. Okay, so let's just start right up. I've already kind of given an intro to the setup here, and I'm going to reference this problem that we did in the first video. So let's just start this thing right up. So my first job is I'm going to find the x-intercept. So let's find that. Here, I'll use a different color here. We'll use red here. So I'm going to find the x-intercept. So I'm going to take the numerator, set it equal to 0. The top expression is 1, and I get 1 equals 0. And you're probably alarmed. It's like, that makes absolutely no sense. And you're exactly right. 1 cannot equal 0. Now this probably sends up some red flags, no point intended, that we do not have an x-intercept. And let me tell you why. If we jump down to step number 4, you notice that when I find the horizontal asymptote, one of the other cases, which the alternative to this one, is that if no x on top, then y equals 0, which means if there's no x on top, the horizontal asymptote is on 0, okay? So you're right to throw up some red flags and be like, why is 1 equals 0 makes absolutely no sense. You're exactly right. And that is because the horizontal asymptote is on the x-axis. Remember, asymptotes, we cannot cross asymptotes, and so that's why a point cannot exist on an asymptote, all right? So there is no x-intercept, okay? So let's take step number 2 here. We'll just keep going right along. Let's plug in 0 to find the y-intercept. So if I plug in 0 where I see all x's, I get 1/4. So that means that the line crosses the y-axis at 1/4. And I'm going to try to draw it in here as best I can to estimate where that is. It's just 1/4 of the way up on the y-axis. All right. So here we go. Next one. I need to find the vertical asymptote. So I'm going to set the bottom equal to 0. Okay, so I'm going to take the bottom expression, which happens to be x plus 4. I'm going to set that equal to 0, subtract 4 to both sides, and I get x equals -4. So my vertical asymptote is at -4. Okay? All right. Okay, so we got our graph starting to appear here. We've already done step number 4 because we checked that when we looked at step number 1. We were a little confused, so we jumped right to 4 and found that the horizontal asymptote is on the x-axis, which resulted in no x-intercept. All right, now we're on for step number 5, and recall, just like on the last one, I have a point on this side of the vertical asymptote, which I'm going to use to estimate the graph on this side. All right, probably could draw a little bit better line. I got a thing with drawing these perfect lines. Let's see if I can do a better job here. So that one looks a little bit better. All right. Oh, better get this done quickly. And so we have the horizontal asymptote, or sorry, the graph is on this side, riding along here. Now you'll notice I need to find that other side. So I'm going to choose a point to plug in. And like I said in the last video, if I choose a point that's right next to the vertical asymptote, I'm going to get a number that's a little bit easier to graph. So I'm going to plug in this case, -5. Okay, so we got 1, and then I'm going to plug in -5 for the x. So I would get 1/-1. So the point that I have here is I plugged in -5, and I got -1. So that's a point on my graph, which would be right here. And so I'm going to follow along the asymptotes and make sure I go through that point, and I have the graph of this function. Again, if you want to be a little bit more precise, you can continue plugging in numbers into this function to graph this. Like for example, if I were to plug in -2, I would get 1/2, which looks pretty good for my estimate there. And again, you can keep plugging in numbers if you want to make it a little bit more exact. I'm going to do one additional video after this to talk about another unique situation, but please come with questions if you have any during class. Thank you.